people thought it was kind of a peculiar decision that Sony decided to make the sequel to God of War, one of its biggest action-adventure games of all time, exclusively for the PlayStation 2 when the PlayStation 3 is out there and everyone's buying it. However, when you actually start playing God of War 2, it actually starts to kind of make sense, considering God of War 2 really is kind of a fitting end to the PlayStation 2 generation. It's, it is a fitting swan song because it is such a fantastic game and just it kind of embodies everything that went right with that entire system. Once again, you play the game as Kratos, the angry god of war who, originally was immortal, then sort of killed Ares in the last game, became the god of war in this one. And you're off on another, revenge-fueled adventure filled with all sorts of crazy puzzles and bloody combat, and, it's a lot like the last game was. Of course, it's not a bad thing. In fact, a lot of what God of War 2 does is simply refine a lot of what made the first game so great. The game picks up pretty much where the last game left off. Kratos has sort of ascended to Olympus as the god of war, and you'd think maybe with the whole god thing he'd be, a little bit happier, but no, not so much with the Kratos. Dude is all up on killing everything in Greece. He's got the Spartan army rolling all over the place, just, laying waste to all the cities in the name of Sparta, and this is kind of pissing off the other gods. So he's essentially sent down to Rhodes in the middle of a fight with the Spartans and is deprived of his godly abilities. A few fights later and a little bit of betrayal by Zeus, and you're basically dead until Gaia, one of the Titans, comes along and basically resurrects you and tells you that you can change your fate. You don't have to die. You don't have to be betrayed by Zeus if you go and find the Sisters of Fate, who control fate. Of course, this wouldn't be anything related to Greek mythology if it weren't a horribly labyrinthine process to get to them, because they're out on this remote island that's just like all these different puzzles and weird traps and pitfalls and everything, and basically it's just a big pain in the ass to get there. But it's a fun pain in the ass because you have to get to solve all those puzzles, you get to kill a whole lot of horrible monsters in the process, and even kill some figures from Greek mythology like Perseus and Icarus, and maybe you'll find a god.
We will never allow you to reach our sacred temple, Kratos.
If you play God of War 1, God of War 2 is very similar and is immediately accessible from the get-go. The combat actually hasn't changed a whole lot in any capacity. It still relies heavily on the whip-heavy combat of your chain blades that are on either arm. You get your magic attacks, you get a few upgradable weapons as time goes on, but pretty much the bulk of the combat is all about using the blades and just doing the basic combos and kind of mashing on the buttons a little bit. There's also all the context-sensitive attacks where if a button icon appears above an enemy's head, you can just press the button and start this little mini-game sequence where you press buttons and do something really horrible and brutal and kind of gory and disgusting to any number of the various bosses in the game. Of course, that's pretty much what makes the game entertaining, is how bloody and violent and over the top it is, and there are some really spectacular deaths in this game, especially with the bosses, which there are also more of in this game as opposed to the 3 that were in God of War. What really has improved and changed from the last game, though, is the level designs and the puzzles. The puzzles still pretty much follow the same framework as the last game, so you're still kind of, pushing a lot of levers and hitting a lot of switches and moving blocks around and all that, but the way the game is paced out and the way the puzzles are set up and the way the levels are designed, it really feels like it's keeping you moving along at all times. It's hard to get really frustrated with the game, and it really feels like they just tightened it up to the best degree they possibly could. The game itself also ends in a bit of a lurch. It doesn't fully wrap everything up. It kind of leads you to believe that, oh, yeah, no, this is just going to keep going in the next sequel, which will probably be on the PlayStation 3. But at the same time, it does tie things together pretty nicely. It's got some good boss fights that precede it, and it doesn't leave you with, just a lame cutscene. It's it actually is pretty awesome what happens. From a production standpoint, God of War 2 is also immensely impressive. It is again just like God of War was, one of the best looking games on the PlayStation 2, especially in scope and scale. The levels in the game are just massive in a lot of spots. The game also has another fantastic musical score and some heavy hitting voice talent, including Michael Clarke Duncan and Harry Hamlin reprising his Clash of the Titans role as Perseus in one of the best cameos ever.
I have faced test after test in search of the sisters. And now you have dashed it all away. You certainly do not live up to your reputation, ghost of Sparta.
For fans of the original God of War 2 is pretty much exactly what you were hoping for. It takes everything that was great about the first game, really improves it in a lot of meaningful ways, and damn it if it isn't just a whole lot of fun to run around and kill stuff as Kratos. It doesn't really move the series immensely forward in any meaningful capacity, but as a pure, unadulterated sequel to what God of War was, it is a fantastic game, and it is, again, a really fitting swan song for the PlayStation 2.